Hey, home theater nerds, welcome to the Brightside Home Theater Podcast, the home theater podcast that's all about the experiences. And I'm standing outside my theater right now. I'm about to sit down and talk with Braden Russel. We're going to talk streaming. He streams everything, so I couldn't wait to talk to him about this. Braden is one of my favorite people in podcasting that I talk to. All of these guys, the HT guys, the AV Rant guys, they've been so great to me. I'm super excited to talk to Braden. It's been a long time coming. He's a very, very busy guy between his family, his job, and podcasting. And we talk, but I don't get to sit down with him. So I'm super excited to be able to talk to him. We're going to talk streaming. I recently saw the Adam Project stream. Obviously, it's on streaming on Netflix. Fantastic. Streaming is offering so much for our home theaters now, and I couldn't wait to talk to him about it because that's what he does exclusively. Everything he does is through streaming. So I love his opinions on this. It's not a bad way to go. It isn't. But let's sit down with Braden, talk about that, and I'll be back with more to say afterwards too. But let's go sit down with Braden and let's go have some home theater fun.
This is Brightside Home Theater.
All right, Braden, let's get this going on a take two here.
Take two. Yeah. Second time's always better, right?
Yeah, that's right. Braden Russel from the HT guys, which should be rebranded to the Careful What You Wish For show.
Why is that? Oh, I see. Yeah. We've come back to that topic a couple times, huh?
We're gonna talk streaming today, right? Mostly streaming. And you guys, for years, listening to you guys over the years, you've been like, oh, I wish we could have a la carte. I wish we could have this. And then I could. And now, like the last couple months, it's been cracking me up because you guys are all like, you want to go back to, the cable system.
Yeah. I mean, that may be a little bit tongue in cheek, right? But yeah, careful what you wish for. And I think I kind of poke Ara with it more often, right? Because I was the one always like, dude, we got to get a la carte. I never watch all these channels. He's like, no, there's good stuff on. And then we get a la carte, and I'm like, nah, dude, a la carte sucks, man. We got to go back to one bill. I need it all in one bill. So, maybe I can just never be pleased, but it's good to be back.
Thank you for coming back. It's been 2 years almost. Yeah,
you have the patience of a saint, man. You've been asking for a while, and we've been trying to make it happen. But thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. This is cool.
Yeah, I was glad. I don't know. It's so funny. I wanted to say, I don't want to hurt any of the other guys' feelings, but you're like my most sought after guest.
I know you tell that to all the guests, so it's cool.
No.
But I'll take it. Like for the next half hour or so, I'll believe it. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like, obviously we do the Thanksgiving thing and we touch base here and there. But yeah, it's awesome to have you back. I've been wanting to have you back for the streaming stuff because I know you're pretty much all streaming, right? You're not even
streaming all the
discs.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know. I think I have a disc player somewhere in the garage, but I don't know exactly where it is. It's gathering dust. It's underneath a bunch of other old amps and stuff. But yeah, no, I've gone to all streaming. So convenience
what made you do that in the first place? Just convenience and price?
Convenience, price, and then just frustration with disc players. Right. So I went through so many different disc players and then disc players that, wouldn't behave the way I wanted them to behave. Right. And we went through, like I had HD DVD and then I had Blu-ray, and then Blu-ray had all those issues with BD Java and all those nonsense. Right. And then 4K players, and then the players needed a firmware update or else they wouldn't play the disc. And eventually I got to where I could just rent a streaming movie and not have to worry about it. And it just worked. So.
Yeah, it is really smooth. Apple, now, you run mostly Roku, correct?
I'm all Roku.
I remember right?
Yep.
All Roku all the time?
That's it, man. I mean, it's in the TCLs. So that's what sort of got me into that ecosystem, I guess. But yeah, between Ara and I, he's all Apple all the time. I'm all Roku. Otherwise, I'm Apple, right? So I made that same move where I went from disc to streaming because of convenience. I did that Android to Apple thing because Android was great. I could do whatever I wanted with it, but it never worked. So I'm a little more clamped down with the Apple phone, but it works all the time. So
yeah. And Yeah, it's streaming is. I mean, there's so much good stuff on there too, and we'll get to some of them. But it's the most convenient. It is the one that I recommend to people if they're just starting out. I'm like, don't even try to get into discs. Don't bother with it because, in my opinion, I mean, you'll agree that the quality. I mean, if you want the higher quality, that's on the discs, right?
Yeah, you can't beat the quality of the disc. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to show off your content or your theater, or you really want to experience that full theater that you put in, you're going with disc. But for the most part, I'm more about sort of convenience, get in and get out. And I don't have a dedicated theater like other kind of more hardcore guys like you do. So,
but even a guy like I did a theater for a listener / friend a few months ago, and he has a dedicated room, but he was just starting out. He had a 65-inch TV, but no surround sound. He was just using the speakers on the TV. So I set him up with an SVS 5.1 Denon receiver, and he's off and running, and he loves it. But I'm like, don't get into the disc because you're just going to enjoy the streaming, and then if you want to upgrade in a year or so, then maybe you can do that. But as long as you stay there, you'll enjoy. I mean, the quality is pretty good. I mean, I just did put out a thing the other day about the Batman, and the HBO Max is not very good. Have you experienced that at all? Do you have HBO Max or any? Do you know?
I have HBO Max
quality.
Yeah. So Wonder Woman, I thought was pretty good. I thought the quality of Wonder Woman was pretty good when the second one when it came out, sort of exclusive for streaming. Yeah, 84. But otherwise the content on HBO isn't necessarily, or the content I'm watching on HBO isn't necessarily the content that really requires super good. Like I'm watching Winning Time right now. That's the Lakers show that's on. Doesn't require a massive amount of like really high quality audio and video. A lot of the stuff they're doing was sort of retro feel in the video, so it feels like 80s quality content.
Was it shot with like 8mm or something?
Some of the shots are, yeah. I mean, some of it's full 4K, but and then what's that new? They got that new show, the Japanese, the guy that becomes a reporter for the Japanese newspaper. Man, I just started it too. It's really good. It's really good. HBO's putting out some really good content. But no, talk to me about the quality. What are you saying about quality on HBO?
So the Batman, for instance, that just came out on Monday on streaming on HBO Max. It came out on Apple TV, iTunes. You can purchase it for $29.99, or you can rent it for $24.99. I don't know why you wouldn't just buy it at that point. And I also got it on my Kaleidoscape. But the HBO Max, the 4K, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos, I compared it. I actually purchased the digital streaming too on iTunes. The HBO Max, it looks like you're looking through a soft filter. It doesn't look good at all. Yeah.
What'd you think of Wonder Woman 84? Did it look good? Did you compare it with others or?
But I did actually. And I thought it looked good. But the thing with Wonder Woman was that was a mostly bright movie, right? Yeah. So it's easy to be wowed by the colors. Everything looks nice. Where the Batman is a very dark movie. And when you get into those darker scenes and you're not getting a good stream, it didn't look good at all. What was funny is the iTunes actually looked better. The digital download, premium digital download, they called it. It looked closer to what I was seeing on the Kaleidoscape, which is basically what you'll get on the disc. It's not the same as that, but it is better than. It looks like HBO Max is. I don't know if they're throttling it back or what, but I know iTunes usually puts out pretty good stuff, especially coming. They're trying to promote their stuff, so. I don't know.
So who do you as the gold standard in streaming quality? For me, it was always Vudu. For a long time, HDX on Vudu was the gold standard. Who do you say has it right now?
For the best content, it's got to be Apple TV. Apple TV Plus. Apple TV Plus has by far the best content, best quality content. All of their stuff is it's like studio quality, almost as close as you could probably get to disc quality. Do you have? You don't. You're on Roku, so you don't have Apple TV Plus, do you?
I have Apple TV Plus. Yeah, you can get that on Roku.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Have you caught any of the shows like C or Foundation or any of those shows?
I started the comedy one, the Ted Lasso, right? That was good. Everyone was
Yeah.
talking
Oh,
about Ted
that's
Lasso
awesome.
about a year ago, so I started
Yeah.
that one. I haven't got too deep into it, and then I think the new one that I just picked up. No, I can't think of the name of it now, but there was one that was recommended that I've watched the first episode of. But if you told me, I'd remember. Now I don't, because there's too many streaming. I want it all on one bill, right? There's too many streaming services.
There you
now.
go.
So,
Yeah. C, really good. That's the one with Jason Momoa. He's blind. It's basically about like the planet is a virus went through the planet. Everybody turned blind, and it stayed that way for centuries. And that's basically where you are. But the sound in that is just amazing. There's 2 seasons of it. It's an amazing production, great picture, great HDR, great sound. And the same with Foundation, which is kind of like based on the books. I can't remember the author's names right off the top of my head, but it's kind of like Dune. That one's really good too. Same great production quality, great HDR, great surround sound. But then, I mean, all of their stuff, whether you like the content or not, their stuff is top quality.
Yeah.
I'd say the next one was always, you'd probably agree with it, Netflix. Their qualities, they have some of the best HDR and some of the best surround sound for action movies and stuff. And like, I know you hadn't seen, we talked earlier, you hadn't seen Adam Project yet.
no, I'm just talking trash about it on our show because of rumors I've heard. No, I've heard it's a great movie, and it's a really good family movie, and it's a kind of tugs on the heartstrings and stuff. The only jokes I'm hearing about it is that it's, Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds, right? But otherwise, I've heard it's a great movie. And Netflix early on wasn't the gold standard in streaming content, but I think they have come on, especially a lot of their documentary stuff. The
Lost you
Planet.
there for a sec.
Yeah, so I was talking about Netflix documentary content, like Night on Earth or whatever those, and Planet Earth. Some of the content there is some of the best 4K content I've seen, right? And it looks like you're watching, like, really fish jumping out of the ocean. So yeah, I would say Netflix is really, really good. Early on, they weren't great, right? They struggled with their streaming content, but I think that, yeah, they're probably up there at the top at this point.
I'd say, they're at the top because I think they're the kind of the pioneers. They had the first streaming service, really. Netflix did. And then they were trying to do the best they could to get you into their service. So they're the pioneers. And then it looks like Apple is the one that's like learning from everybody's mistakes. And they're trying to put out, they're just going to do it the right way. They're seeing what everybody does right, and they're just duplicating that. And that's all they do is put out good stuff.
Yeah, to
Amazon,
me,
I don't
Vudu-
think cares. What's
No,
that?
Amazon doesn't care because it's something they throw in for free with Prime, right? So it's
Yeah.
but
They have
Vudu
some
would-
good content, but it's not as good as what everybody else has.
Yeah, Vudu to me was the sort of the set the standard early on for streaming, right? I had one of the little Vudu boxes that had the antennas coming off the back. This was how you can rent movies at home without having to go to Blockbuster. And they pushed the boundaries as far as quality of streaming content. They were the first ones to claim they had HD content, and everybody laughed at them, but it was definitely better than what everyone else was streaming at the time. But yeah, I mean, that service is, I guess, probably not as common for people to go to anymore because you can get that same content everywhere else, right? I don't know if anyone really uses Vudu much. So
Yeah, it's I used it. Didn't they have that program where if you bought the 4K, you'd get the digital right away?
they had integration into Ultraviolet, right? So if you added to Ultraviolet, then it would show up in your Vudu account. Yeah.
But I think I actually remember the movie Bloodshot with Vin Diesel came out right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes. I did that one as well because that was one of those theater at home things at the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the last movie I saw before literally the night the theater shut down. I had tickets to the last show for Bloodshot. So I saw it on a Tuesday night. They closed the theater. It came out on digital the following week. So I got it then. So that was the first time you were really able to see something in the theater and then that soon be able to see it in your home. So I did that. And then we were stuck at home. So I bought it on iTunes and I wasn't crazy about the quality, but I had heard the Vudu was really good. So I bought it on Vudu. But what I did on Vudu is I bought the 4K disc through them and they immediately gave me the upload. So I was able to watch it there. And then when the disc came out, like a month and a half later, they just shipped me the disc. But the quality on that, on the Vudu, was really good. It actually was better than the iTunes. Pretty good. It had Atmos 4K.
I got it on Vudu as well. I mean, I didn't think it was a great movie. Afterwards, I was glad I got it on Vudu instead of paying for the tickets to go see it in the theater. I don't know how you felt leaving the theater after paying for the tickets. But I got it to support the idea that I want to be able to stream at home. Right. And so when they started releasing these movies roughly day and date with the theater, I rented a few that I knew I wouldn't go see in the theater just to show that, hey, you know, if it's available at home, I'm not going to watch it in the theater, but I'll watch it home. And hopefully it still continues. Right. And we don't lose it as they start opening theaters back up.
Right. What's funny is before the pandemic, I always used to like yell back at you guys to yelling at my radio because you always wanted to have more stuff day and date at home. And this was long before the pandemic. You guys were big proponents of that. You were like, proponents that you wanted, hey, why can't we do that? I think you could generate more money that way. And I would always be yelling at the radio, like, if they did that, nobody would go to the theater. Cause I've had arguments with other people too, but since the pandemic, I'm coming around to your way of thinking because I've been exposed to it and I've seen what it can do. And I think there is a happy medium there. And I think we're getting pretty close to it. Like what they did with the Batman only, what was that? Was it even 90 days? I don't think it was 45. It was 45
Yeah, I don't know. Someone was asking, hey, can we stream it? One of my boys was asking, hey, can we stream it? And I said, I don't think so yet. And I just checked HBO and it's on there. So yeah, that was quick. Yeah. I mean, I think the issue with streaming and people say that, you know, if you can stream these movies and no one will go to the theater, I mean, I don't want to be blunt or anything, but that's not really my problem, right? If the theater owners can't put a product out that people want to go see, then, you know, don't make it so that I can't watch movies just to support a business that's failing. Why don't they create a product that, you know, draws people in? Because not everybody has home theaters. Not everyone's going to want to watch at home. A lot of times you want to go out and have a night out on the town or take the kids out, go out on a date. So if they can build a product that people want to go watch movies in, then they'll still sell tickets, right? But the fact that they have a terrible product isn't my fault. It shouldn't be, I can't watch at home because the theaters suck.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And they need to do something, especially when you put it that way. But they need to do something to draw you back in. My buddy that lives in Houston, his theater, when you order your tickets online and obviously you have your select a seat. You buy your popcorn, you buy your candy, you buy your soda. When you sit down, you check in on your phone and they bring you your popcorn, your candy, and your soda.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't have to wait in line. And it's like, that's service. And if you have something like that, that's pretty cool. That'll drive that can make you be like, you know what? That was kind of fun. I'll do that again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if it's convenient and easy and comfortable, right, and clean, right? You know, you don't stick to the floor when you walk through the theater. The hardest part, though, are the other people in the theater because I can THX certify my kids, right? And if they're talking during the movie, I can reach over and smack them. But other people in the theater, you can't do that with, and that's the one thing that I don't know that there's a real good solution for at this point. So,
did you hear my horror story?
Tell me.
I went and saw The Eternals. And I was enjoying it. And it's one of those movies that you have to pay attention to. It's a different take on a Marvel type movie where there's a lot of information. They're trying to do a different type of movie. And there was a kid in there. She had to be 6 years old. Shouldn't have been in this movie anyways. Running around with light up sneakers on. Yelling. And people are like, you know, make your kid sit down. Then they made the kid sit down and then she started screaming and they're like, get your kid out of here. And I was like, are you kidding? And then to get her to stop screaming, they let her run around, but she'd run like right across the front stage. And the glow of the sneakers is like washing out the screen as she's running across the stage. I was just like, absolute worst experience I've ever had at the movies. Nobody from the theater ever came in and took her out and said, I mean, what do you do? I didn't know nobody knew what to do, but I'm like, it was awful. Absolutely awful. And it's like,
they got to fix that. Yeah. And I don't know what the solution is, but they got to fix that somehow. Right. Because everybody left that theater going, man, I don't want to go back. Right. Because what happens if I buy a ticket and next time the same thing happens? The theater's not going to come in and stop it. I'm going to have, wasted my money on the ticket for that movie because didn't enjoy it, didn't really see it, whatever. But
did I lose you?
It looks like maybe we paused up again. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right, we're back. All right, so let me ask you this on streaming. Some of the streaming apps like HBO and Disney and others, they do the episodic thing where they drop a new episode every week. And then others drop like the whole season, Netflix and others at the same time. Which one do you prefer?
Episodic or all at once? I actually, talk about a cop-out, I like having both. Because when you have both, it allows you to be able to have conversations like this. But not only that, it allows you to enjoy your content in different ways. But if my buddy and I have this conversation all the time on our other podcast, but I think if I had to choose, if you made me say for the rest of your life, you can only have it one way, I would do week to week episodic.
Really?
Because what I like about it is, I don't know. I feel like you would agree, but maybe not. When we grew up, that's the way TV was. And then you talked about the stuff at school or at work, and then you couldn't wait to see the next episode. And that's what I like about the episodic part is that in between each episode, you have that week's time to talk to your friends about it and be like, hey, what do you think? And this and that. And I've had conversations with people on Twitter that they're like, oh, I just wait until the end and I binge it all at once. I'm like, well, you must be a blast at the water cooler. Like, la, 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 don't talk to me. I haven't seen it yet. I'm like, that's the cool guy? No. It's like, you know what I mean? There's an interaction there that I think we're sorely lacking in society nowadays. A good interaction about just content of entertainment value and stuff and having fun. And that's what episodic does for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do miss that from like 24 back in the day. A new 24 episode would come out and you'd be like, holy cow, did you see the new episode? And it gets to a cliffhanger. And if you could binge it, I would have binged a whole bunch of them, right? Because every single one of them was a cliffhanger at the end, right? And you would have just kept going, but they wouldn't let you. So I do get that. I mean, I find it harder, though, to stay connected to the show when I don't get to control when I watch the episodes. Right? Like if I get to watch another one, I get to the end of an episode and I'm like, oh man, I'm really into it. I want to see what happens next. And I can watch another one. Then I can stay more connected to it versus I can't see what's coming next and I got to wait a week and then maybe I lose interest. And by the time the next week comes, then, I'm not right on it. I don't know. I guess I have the same thing with when you have a season and you binge the whole season and then it feels like it takes them like 2 years to bring out the next season. And you're like, oh man, you got to watch the first season again just to remember what happened. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say this to you for like what you said about theaters. If they can't grab you and keep you wanting to come back the next week, then maybe that's more on the show. That's more of a crappy piece of content.
It's hard with one episode though, right? I mean, the measurement is usually like if they can get you through like 3 episodes, then they've got you, right? But it's hard to make that judgment in one episode, I think. If you get through like 2 or 3, like the first Jack Reacher wasn't great, right? But a couple more and it was good. Actually, the first Moon Knight, though, ended really well, and I still haven't watched the second one yet. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'm enjoying Moon Knight. Again, I think, especially what Disney's doing with their series, every single one of these series is different. It's
very,
put together
very
differently, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that fun? I mean, wasn't a big fan of Falcon Winter Soldier, but it was still good. It's like it was still entertaining, but it just wasn't as good as the others.
Yeah, and very different than WandaVision or Loki.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Loki, I thought was a lot of fun. Loki was a really, really fun show.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the new way they're doing seasons where it's basically like one plot broken down into like 8 episodes versus having like back in the day when we used to watch like Magnum PI, it was a new plot every episode. right? So what you would talk about in that episode was like an entire story arc versus now you get like a little section of the story, or the new whodunit formula is you get introduced to a new potential, whoever the criminal was or whatever, behind the case. But then, oh no, by the end it's not them. And then the next episode it's a different person that it could be. Oh no, it's not them. And then by the last episode it's, I never would have guessed it was them. But it's one story, right? For the whole 8, 12 episodes. It's a different way to consume content that to me works better when you binge it than it does week to week.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but the shows when the ones that you're referencing from when we were younger, those are like 22, 24 episodes to a season, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And now we're doing 8, 10. I mean, I remember way back when, 2015, and when Daredevil came out on Netflix, and that was really good. Love the production quality of that. That was, I thought, groundbreaking at the time. And then they came out with Luke Cage, they came out with Iron Fist and Jessica Jones and all those. And what ended up happening, those series people started saying these are running too long. I think some of them were up to 15 episodes or something, 13, 15 episodes. And people listened. The studios all listened. And now we're getting the 8 and 10 episodes, and people are wanting, much like the HT guys, careful what you wish for. People are like, oh, come on, can't we get 12 episodes of this? Because they think the content is that good. But when you run, to your point, a single story for 15 episodes, it can get old, And
yeah, it's like the, did you watch Inventing Anna, the Anna Delvey thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and
I
that
watched the
one
whole
could have
thing.
been that could have been about half the number of episodes, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. She wore on you. But I said to my wife watching it, like, I think that was the point, is because I think she wore on everybody in real life.
It could be, yeah. It was like, art imitating life in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like by the end of it, you're just like, oh my God. She was just so like, I could get into that. That was like, she starts breaking down crying. Why won't anybody take me seriously? If I was a man, they'd take me seriously. And I was like, if a man acted like that, I wouldn't take that man seriously either. Just stop bawling his eyes out.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because now any like Anna Delvey news that comes up, I'm like, dude, I've had enough Anna Delvey. I don't need any more of it. So maybe that was the point, was right. We'll just drag this out for long enough that everybody realizes that this should never happen and we can all move on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And let me ask you this. What do you think about all this real life stuff, like the Anna Delvey story, or what is it called? What About Pam? Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen that one, huh?
So, what do you think of that? Like, do you like that kind of content? Like, it's these real life news stories that they turn into a series.
I do. I mean, I'm really enjoying. It depends on the content, to be honest, but I'm really enjoying Winning Time on HBO. The one about the Lakers. I think that's a lot of fun. I think there are ways that they do it where they try to. I don't know if they try to like Saturday morning cartoons teach you a lesson with it versus just kind of making it fun. And you can see in, the Winning Time one where they're trying to kind of teach you some lessons, right? And you can kind of move past those, but for the most part, it's fun. I think that some of the content's really good. They do some of them where, maybe they don't need to be made into full stories, but I don't know. I watched both of the Fire Festival documentaries and enjoyed them both. I found both of them fascinating. Yeah.
But
what do you think?
That's good stuff. Like the Lakers one that's entertainment about entertainment, right? We watch basketball for entertainment, and there was nobody more entertaining than Magic Johnson and the Lakers back in the 80s. That and Bird on this end. You had the two coasts going at each other all the time. That was entertaining. Literally saved the NBA. So those are fantastic pieces of entertainment to make entertainment about. The ones that I don't like are, like I just said, like I think it's called What About Pam? And Renee Zellweger plays the lead character in this. And it's a real life story of a woman that killed her friend, blamed it on the husband, ended up killing. I mean, she killed a bunch of people, put the husband in jail, lied all about this, we're in the middle of the second episode. I said to my wife, I go, shut it off. I'm like, I'm just getting sick because this is real. And we're calling this entertainment. And that kind of bothered me. It's like we're being like the Tiger King. We're being entertained by miserable stuff. I was just like, and then, but you're right. There is some great real life content, like you said, about the Lakers and stuff like that, but that's entertainment. And there's lessons to be learned and stuff like, what's the lesson? And what about don't get murdered by your friend? Like it was just, there's a podcast about it. My wife loves that stuff. She loves all that murder stuff and the real life stories. And I'm just like, ugh. I'm like, there's such better things to do, better ways to be creative with entertainment, than to show you real life death. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, I mean, some of those stories pull me in. I'll admit I got pulled into some of the Hotel Cecil Night Stalker stuff, but that kind of like crossed over with my childhood, right? There was a house, Night Stalker hit a house a few blocks away from where I lived as a kid in Mission Viejo.
Oh, really?
So, some of it is morbid and you watch it and go, man, I really don't want to be watching this, but then you get kind of hooked in on it. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. There's some content out there that I've turned off, right? Because it's like just glorification of stuff that otherwise there's no reason, I have no reason to be interested in this. But yeah.
But that's the thing is, and there's so much content, they have no choice. And there is, I'm not faulting them. I'm not telling them to take those shows off, but it's because people like my wife love them. And it's like, that's great. There's so many platforms right now that need content on them. And they're all looking for the next best thing, the next Game of Thrones, the next water cooler talk, their next, whatever it is. And I mean, I think it's great. I had, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think that they're putting as much time now into the next Game of Thrones or the next like really, really great content? I mean, maybe Apple is. Apple's making some really good content versus just the next thing that'll get people to open their app, right? Because there's so much out there and there's so much streaming content. It's really more of a quantity game now than it is a quality game.
Yeah, but I think that's how you get that. I don't think you set out to make the next Game of Thrones. I think when you try to do that, that's usually a recipe for failure. Like if you like look at Seinfeld, they didn't set out to make Seinfeld. They didn't set out to make Cheers. They don't set out to say like, they work their way in because they're something that's fairly new. Right. And you're like, you didn't know when you started that it was going to be the hit that it became. I think when you start out and that's how you do it, is that you just keep throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and something's going to stick. Eventually some gem comes up out of it and you're like, oh my God, look at that. Like Ted Lasso. Yes, that's an Apple TV Plus piece, but it's a comedy. It's who would have thought that feel good, but I think it just came around at the right time, the pandemic, and people were looking for that feel good type thing where they could just sit home and it was huge. Yeah. Now, I don't think they meant that, like this is going to be a hit. Like,
yeah,
but
it's similar with like Stranger Things, right? I mean, my guess is they didn't think that was going to take off like it did. I wonder if there are going to be a bunch of content creators who get into it because they know that it's just a volume game, right? And we can just massively create, formulaic content and someone will buy it versus those who are saying, hey, I really want to build unique, new content, right? Like you can watch any Hallmark movie, they're all the same, right? The formula is the same. Right. You can crank out 50 of those, every Christmas and they'd be exactly the same. Versus, people who are creating the newer, kind of more original, Ozark and Stranger Things kind of content. As long as that stays around and we don't end up with a bunch of Hallmark movies, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
Not absolutely. To diss Hallmark. My wife makes me subscribe to Hallmark every Christmas. So,
but that's why it sells. People like that. It's like their comfort food. It's like, you just settle down, watch my wife does it to me all the time. She'll put the show on and I'll be like, what are we watching this for? She falls asleep and then I'm riveted. And I'm stuck there. Like she'll wake up 2 hours later. I'm like, you wouldn't believe what she did. It's like, and then the friend and the husband and like, and the slippers. Oh my God, the slippers.
Go catch her before she gets on the plane.
I know. Like, all right, let's bring this back around to some more manly stuff. NFL streaming app. Did you hear about that?
I have not heard. No.
Oh, okay. I read it on Cord Cutters, I think last week, and they're looking at when their contract is up. I think they have a contract right now, one more season with DirecTV for their streaming stuff and anything that they do, and they're going to be basically looking to do something else. And it looks like right now the owners are talking about doing their own streaming app. And what I'm reading, the possibilities look really good. The speculation is it'll be like $5 a month. Maybe each team has a channel within the app. And there's so much. Could you imagine that in like the NFL?
This is another one of those things that where I've hoped to get to that are is like, I got Sunday ticket, so it doesn't matter to me. Right. But the Sunday ticket situation is always what kind of has prevented us from being able to get access to football. And if NFL can get past Sunday ticket, I think they can make it available to everyone, right? And not just the Sunday ticket subscribers. But that's exciting. Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah. I'm wondering how that's going to play out with, I guess the network games would be their own thing, and those would get blacked out of the app, I'm sure. But what they would do is the other thing is there would be shows on there for each team. The radio stuff, you could hear radio from different parts of the country, different teams, all of that stuff. They're speculating at all the stuff that would be possible with it. But the other thing that is driving the NFL for this is the data information, because the feedback, it's immediate feedback. And they would know, and how much the NFL loves their data, how much they love to know and manipulate everything on their own accord. And it's like to get into that on their own and have all that data firsthand would be huge for them.
Yeah, it's interesting though you point that out, because I hadn't thought about that. Amazon picked up their Thursday night football games, right? And they still have network games. So NFL right now, and then like if you're talking about radio content, it's going to be a mismatch of Clear Channel stations and Fox Sports Radio and other, content owners that they're going to have to try to pull together. Because the NFL is it's scattered everywhere, right? They don't have just one source of NFL content. Yeah, that'd be interesting. If they can pull it all together into one app, figure out how they pay everybody, right? And you could just go to one spot to get any NFL content, that'd be pretty rad.
Yeah. Yeah. The NHL is the same way. It's like, I'm a Bruins fan, and if they're on ESPN, I have Hbo TV, but if some of the stuff isn't on Hbo, I have to go over and I have to get Sling for the NHL season so that I can get that channel over there. And you don't know what night Thursdays. All right, which channel is it? So you're flipping around because everything is everywhere. And it's like, I wish we could go back to those cable days where everything was
if we could
all
just
over
have
the place.
one feed coming into the house with these different channels you could pick from, right?
Yeah. I will say to you though, I am still paying less than I was paying when I had Dish Network at the time, and instead of cable. And I am still paying less having dropped my Dish than I was then. And
yeah,
with
Dish
all
added
of
up
the
fast,
streaming.
Right? With the Hoppers and the Joeys, and I don't know if you got into that stuff, but yeah, Dish added up.
I had like I had one Hopper in the theater, and then I had 4 Joeys throughout the house, and I was paying and I had all the channels, and I was paying like $2.15. But then, because that's not part of cable, I also had to pay for my internet. So I was paying $75 for my internet on top of that. So now I just do everything streaming. I upped my internet to a gig just recently, but that, I'm at 140 just for that. But with all of my streaming stuff, I'm still way under the 200 that I was paying. And that's with all,
Yeah. I'm the same. I'm way less than where I was with Dish. I think I'm about where I was with Cox, because I left Dish to go to Cox for a little while. But yeah, my problem is I have all of the streaming channels at this point, right? And when I go through and say, hey, I want to drop some of these because I don't need all of them, then I'm like, no, but Yellowstone's on this one. It's going to come back, so I might as well just leave it turned on. And there's like one show on each of these apps that I like, and I don't want to not see that show. So I'm stuck.
Right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you know what is nice about streaming though, as opposed to, I'm sure you ran into this with Cox. I know I did with Charter. I ran into it with, obviously with Dish. You don't have to worry about those like arguments that they had with, like, I lost HBO off of my Dish, so I had to pick it up streaming anyways. And then, or CBS once dropped out just before NFL season. They were like, oh, in the Boston market, they're dropping CBS because they're having a contract dispute with Dish. And you were at that mercy. What do? You got to grab some rabbit ears or something. And
I've still got that, man. Roku's having all those fights with everybody. Roku is getting into fights where like YouTube's getting pulled off Roku, YouTube TV's getting pulled off Roku. And then we do every once in a while, we'll have channel issues with some of the streaming apps, right? The YouTube TV lost. Who did they lose?
But it's a lot easier to shift on the fly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like, because you're already in that
you can drop
streaming
YouTube
market,
TV
so
or Sling TV or whatever and pick up another one that has the channels.
It's like, hey, the
or
NHL
go straight to the
on.
app if you needed to, right?
Yeah, you go right to the app, or you just grab the other app on a trial to see what happens. And, if, like you said, if you're on YouTube and they drop a channel, you're like, all right, let me check out Fubo, or let me check out Sling, or let me do that. And it's nice to get into that, because then you become more adaptable, because the entire thing is being the entire idea is being adaptable. So when something goes wrong, you just adapt and move on.
Right. And then the streaming providers get the idea that, hey, we can't get into these big sort of pissing matches with CBS or NBC, because if we lose CBS, we lose all our subscribers. They're not locked in like they used to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like at the same time where, like before, where we had no choice. You had your cable or you had your Dish network. That was the only competitor. It was DirecTV, Dish, and whatever cable service you had in your town. So that's the only threat you had. It's like, oh, if you don't like it, I'm going back to my cable service, or I'm going to go to the Dish network. That's all you could say. Now it's, you don't like it, I'll just grab it someplace else. And I'm finding now that I'm getting more of my stuff, like you said, directly from the channel, like HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Peacock. I think that's the way we're going. And then your Fubos, I think Fubos and YouTubes, I think those might be the next ones to go.
And replaced by, we just get our live content from like Netflix or Apple or Amazon, or what do you mean?
I can get live content on my Paramount Plus. I get CBS. I get my CBS live news on Paramount Plus. I get my NFL games I can get on Paramount Plus. There's very little content. I would say, I think the only thing I really need Fubo for is like Nesson, which is what I get the Bruins on and stuff. But all they got to do is come out with an app. And then next thing you know, you'd be like, if Nesson or the NHL comes out with an app like the NFL, you start to get rid of it. I think the Fubos and the YouTubes are that was our gateway from cable into streaming, but that could be that's the next step to drop, the next shoe to drop,
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. And it's some of these bigger streaming services like Apple and Amazon are trying to build the entire ecosystem into their one app, right? So you don't need to have 50 apps. You open up Amazon and you can add HBO and Paramount and all the other apps through Amazon. So really at that point, it doesn't matter if you're on Roku or Apple or Google or anyone, as long as you open up the right app where all of your subscriptions are, all that content's there. And then it's all on one bill. It's almost like having cable back again. But Amazon's your cable company now, right? Or Netflix is your cable company now.
Right. And I've heard issues with that. Like if you buy it there and then you try to do something else, they go, well, you can't get out of that one because you're in this one over here. You have to open a new account. And you're like, ugh. So I try to avoid that stuff. Like I like to keep them as separate as possible so that I can manipulate them when I want to manipulate them, when I need to.
Yeah, but for the convenience, right? If you're in Amazon and you want to watch HBO content, it's all just right there, right? You don't have to leave the app and go to a different app, right? That's where, to me, because right now, if I want to watch a show, I go through my brain trying to figure out what app was that show on, or I'll search my Roku, like what app was this thing on, and it turns out it was on like Peacock or who knows what, right? But if it was all, I guess Apple's trying to do that with Apple TV, essentially take all of your disparate apps so you can have individual subscriptions to those apps, but then just aggregate them into one experience.
Yeah. And it is actually pretty good. My wife and I use that one a lot because you could scroll right through and it'll show you as you scroll through all the shows, it'll say what episode you're on. It'll even have a bar like how far into that episode you are. There's a few apps it doesn't work well with, like HBO Max doesn't work well with. Netflix never works with it. But all the other ones, it's like you said, it's all aggregated into one spot. It's fun it reminds you, oh yeah, I got to watch. I forgot I was watching that one. Like to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I got a question for you if you have time for it.
Sure.
What do you think the lifespan of Netflix is? I had this discussion recently, and I wanted to ask you about it. Where do you think they'll be in 5, maybe 10 years? Do you think they'll still be around?
Yeah, I mean, I think Netflix will still be around in 10 years. I don't think streaming is going anywhere. And I think Netflix, when you look at sort of like the behemoths of the industry, Netflix is up there. They produce probably as much original content as anybody else these days. So just from that standpoint of being a production house, Netflix isn't going away.
Right.
And as far as being a distribution, they probably have, the largest distribution, like worldwide distribution of anybody. So I don't think Netflix is going away. They may be different, and how they would be different, I can't quite say, because their streaming service has been roughly the same since it started, right? I mean, you keep thinking, are they going to get into live content? Are they going to get into rentals or, premium content? And they really haven't, right? It's just sort of been, you've got Netflix, you get access to everything Netflix has. Would they get into different options of subscription formats where they offer live content? Potentially. I think they're going to have to look at, competing with Amazon and Apple and others who are going to look at different kinds of content like that. But I don't think Netflix is going anywhere just from the amount of content they're creating currently and their distribution worldwide. I mean, at some point,
right.
Netflix owned like 50% of the bandwidth in the US, like during prime time. So, yeah.
So the one flaw I see in the Netflix business model, right, compared to all of the others is, like you said, they're putting out some of them, like probably the most original content. But it's also all paid for by our subscriptions. Whereas all of the other people we're talking about, Apple, Amazon, Disney Plus, HBO Max, all of their content, or a lot of their content, I should say, is subsidized by another market. So like Disney Plus, for instance, most of their content is bought, paid for, and for all intents and purposes is free once they put it up on their app, except for the new shows. But that's what I mean. It's subsidized, right? So like Endgame gets in there. How many shows does that $1 billion subsidize? Right? Because it was free by the time it got in there.
Yeah.
HBO Max, the Batman just went up 45 days later, but how many hundreds of millions of dollars did it make before it got there? Right? Whereas Netflix, that's why their prices are so high. They're hemorrhaging money from what I'm hearing because they just have to keep upping their price to us. Do they price themselves out of the market because everybody else is so much cheaper? And that's why I'm wondering, like, could we be seeing the decline of them because they're putting out the content just to keep their head above water, but all their content is costing them money, which makes them have to raise their price, which makes all these things happen. And I'm wondering, is that a sustainable business model?
That's a great question. I mean, their business model is predicated on subscriber growth, right? So at some point, your subscriber growth numbers are going to slow to where, you can't sustain that same growth. Yeah. Which I think that's when they're going to have to start looking at different revenue models, right? Like premium content, live content, or like a premium tier where you get access to in theater movies like Vudu and Amazon do, but you have to be on the premium tier to get that. I think they have the ability to come up with some different models, not as terrible as they did with Quickster. They just have to figure it out, right? I mean, they haven't yet, maybe because they haven't wanted to make another Quickster mistake, but they're going to need to, I think.
Well, they are adaptable. I mean, look at them. They started off by renting discs, and look at them now. So they're probably working on something. Do you think we would ever see a Netflix production go to a theater and then go to Netflix?
I think, well, go to a theater and then go to Netflix.
Yeah, like similar to, like I said, like the Batman or any of the Disney big features. They would release it to the theaters and then come to Netflix like 45 days later. That way they could, like the Atom Project. That could have been in a theater. But what if they had done that? What if they had released that to a theater and, a summer blockbuster type thing, try to recoup some money that way?
Well, I mean, it's an entirely new revenue model for Netflix, right? They haven't tried to go out and make money from the box office before. For them, it's always just been about subscriber growth. So if they could release it in the theater and then somehow drive subscriber growth by releasing in the theater, it might be something they'd be open to. Like if you buy a theater ticket, then now you're a Netflix subscriber for a couple, like 3 months. There could be ways to do that, but I think they would have to drive subscriber growth with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other one I was going to say is, do they start releasing some of their stuff? And they have in the past, like Stranger Things is out on physical media. Do they start releasing some more stuff physical media wise and harp on the home theater fans that want this stuff? Like I would love to get Atom Project in a physical media version, get that better quality in the home. Do they try to branch out that way? I don't have high hopes for that because we're such a small niche market that I don't think it's a huge number for them, but it is a number.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It almost feels like it's against the soul of Netflix to go back to discs,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did do, like I said, they've done other things in the past. Stranger Things pops to mind. I think a lot of
saw
them.
some syndication content that was like streaming original content that's now showing up on like CW and other of your sort of standard syndication channels. I'll have to go look it up. I'm pretty sure I saw something that was either an Amazon or a Netflix show on in syndication, which could be another option for them, right? If they can take their shows and get more life out of them, right?
Yeah. Put it to syndication with commercial money and, sell it to them basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the very least, we're going to see some changes with Netflix because I don't think they can sustain on the exact way they're on their exact trajectory right now. So
keep doing price updates.
Yeah. Because I think they priced themselves out because everybody else is coming in so low. What's Apple TV's like $7, something like that.
Yeah, and in order for them to stay high priced, they're going to have to maintain a higher level of content quality than everybody else, right? There's going to have to be a reason for the premium, and they may not be there yet. It's going to be tough to maintain. So
yeah,
I think you have a great point there. That Netflix is going to have to do something because at some point subscriber growth isn't going to fuel it, right? And price updates, people are going to get tired of that. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I know people that have already dropped it, so we will see. All right. Do you have anything else on streaming?
No, man. This has been awesome.
What's your favorite stream? What's the favorite thing you're streaming right now?
So the show that I just mentioned that's on HBO, Tokyo Vice, is a really good show. I'm getting into that one. I'm loving Winning Time. I think HBO, if you wouldn't have told me that the content quality is terrible on HBO, I would have told you HBO is my streaming network right now. And I got to go check out Batman, right? So that's one of my next movies to watch. So,
well, like I said, the Batman's tough because it's such a dark movie, and I was so looking forward to that with the HDR after seeing it in the theater, and it just doesn't play as well on. I mean, it's still good. You're gonna love it. I've told people like you should watch this on HBO if you have HBO Max. Definitely enjoy it, but when you see the disc, you'll know what I'm talking about. But
so Batman
if you never see the disc, it'll still be good.
Batman's been rebooted I don't know how many times. Where would you rank this one in the Batman reboots?
My favorite.
Is it really?
Yes, it is. It is because I love the story. He's my Robert Pattinson's my favorite Batman already.
Okay.
It's my favorite Batman movie. I love Christian Bale. I love that entire series. Don't get me wrong. The Batman movie, whatever happens, if it's not as good, it will we're only one off here. It's one movie, but this is that detective story that I've wanted out of all the Batman movies. You know, I mean, they were good. I went and I saw 89 in the theater. I was only 19 years old, but I saw it in the theater. I've been all the way through them. I enjoyed them all. I thought the Nolan series was groundbreaking at the time. Dark. It was like cinematic, not just a comic book movie. That's great. I think this takes it to another level because it's a true Batman story. I love everything about it. I love how they shot it. I love the sound. I love the music. I love the score. I love, like I said, the story, the detective part. It's just, to me, it's just the full Batman story.
All right. Well, I'm excited to check it out because I've been telling people, and they've rebooted Batman, I don't know how many times. And so at some point, it's like, I just got to get, I'll be over it. But if this one's good, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Because the Heath Ledger Joker, to me, is one of the best cinematic villains of all time, right? Up there with, Darth Vader and a few other, just like kind of next level cinematic villains. I wouldn't say that Batman peaked there, but that one is tough to beat, right?
Right. This one here, it's 3 hours long, and my buddy has a point where he says it could have been a half hour shorter. I'd say I was so entertained and had such a good time. I wanted more, but I didn't know what more I could get. But I was, you know what I mean? Like, we complain sometimes movies are too long. Well, if you're complaining it's too long, it's because it wasn't very good. If you were entertained the entire time, it's like nobody ever said like that meal was, like, oh, give me, I don't want any more of that. It was too good. No, you just keep eating, right? You just want more. And that's how I felt with this one. My daughter saw it like a month later and she texted me afterwards. She goes, I wanted another hour. I'm like, it was so good. You were just so entertained. So I don't want to overhype it on you, but I really enjoyed it. So it is polarizing though. Some people don't like it.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. I mean, I like The Irishman, even though it was 3.5 hours. I think that one could have been a 4-episode miniseries, but I thought it was a good movie. And there were a couple of times where it was like, all right, this thing should have been broken up into multiple sections, right? Because it kind of dragged on a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there are some really good 3-hour movies. So
yeah. All right.
Man, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me back.
All right. See you in 2 years.
We'll schedule it now.
Yeah, we'll schedule it now. Well, we'll schedule it now for a few months, and then we'll see in 2 years. Yeah. But yeah, I know you have a busy life. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great talking to you all the time, not just now. And you and I have been great to me. Really appreciate everything you've done for me and my show, and look forward to Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a blast.
Thanks, buddy. We'll talk again soon. Super fun. Thanks to Braden. Thank you very much. Thanks again to Braden for coming on. I had such a great time. I told you, he knows his stuff. And what I thought was fun, too, is I had my ideas, like, take Netflix, for instance. I had my ideas on where Netflix could be going. And he has some great ideas too. And that's why sometimes you get caught in a track and you're just thinking one way, and it's good to get other people's opinions on stuff like that. Little behind the scenes, I'm recording this a couple of days after our recording of Braden and I. Like a day later, all this information about Netflix is dropping. So there's so much changing. Netflix is going to have to adapt to keep up with us, really, because as home theater fans, as the consumer in general is changing. We used to do, like Braden and I just said, we used to do cable, now we do, or dish, and now we're doing streaming exclusively. There's so many options for us, and that's what's great for us, the viewer, the consumer, is that we can, like Braden and I were talking about, we can adapt on the fly like that. And if you don't like something somebody's doing, you just drop it because the contracts are gone. It's just so much going on, and we need to be ready at a moment's notice to adapt. And I think the savvy home theater person is good at that, and we're getting good at that. And that's what's making this even more fun. There's multiple ways to take in your content, multiple versions, and there's no right or wrong way. And that's part of this hobby, and that's what makes these podcasts so great, like HT Guys and AV Rant. They help us get the best that we can possibly get out of our system, regardless of the budget, what the room is, all of that stuff. There's so many different ways to do things. Streaming is an option, probably the best, most reliable option right now. It's not the best quality, but quality it's a tough word, because, a McDonald's hamburger, it's the same quality everywhere in the world. And that's what I like about streaming, is that it's the same wherever you go, depending on your speed and stuff. So it's easy to live with. It's easy to cultivate your content, and it's getting even easier, and it's getting better. It is getting better. So there's tons and tons of options out there. But questions, comments, let me know. As I said on my Takeover Tuesday podcast, if you want me to mention something, or you want me to talk about a subject, you want to comment on this, email me at brightsidehometheater@gmail.com and put in the subject line Takeover Tuesday, and I'll talk about it. So it could be a question about today's podcast, something about streaming that you want me to mention that we didn't mention today. So just put subject Takeover Tuesday, and that will get mentioned in a Takeover Tuesday episode. Thank you to everybody for watching so far this episode and all my episodes. If you're new to the podcast, please hit subscribe. Really appreciate that. If you want to support the podcast, there's a way to do it monetarily. You can go to patreon.com/brightsidehometheater and sign up for a monthly donation, as little as $1 or as much as you'd like. Cha-ching! But it's not necessary. The other way you could support the podcast is keep the great conversations going over at Twitter. We're having such a fun time there. We're having so much fun there. I had to eliminate that from my Takeover Tuesday because there's just so much. But it's a lot of fun. So I'll see you on Twitter. If not, send me an email. Also, if you would like to be on the podcast, email me or tweet or DM me on Twitter. Twitter is BrightSideHT. And just DM me. Let me know you'd like to be on Takeover Tuesday. I have a listener a week coming on. We're having a great time. All of my guests so far have been fantastic. We're going 2 hours. We record on Sunday mornings, but I'm flexible. We'll see what we can do. But yeah, 2 hours. And we just talk home theater and whatever the listener wants. So you're welcome to join me there. If not, I'll see you on Twitter or send me an email. But thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for listening. Hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Hit subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, all that great stuff. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everybody. I'll be back on Tuesday with another great guest. Until then, go push play. Hey, Fred.
This has been a Hey Fred production with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions.